Hello everyone, welcome back to another Hackathon training video. Again, my name's Sage, I use she, they pronouns, and in this video we're just going to get things set up so we could actually start coding our example project. So in this video, I will be discussing setting up a Git repository. That will be our version control, and I'll get into that a bit more later. And then after that, we're going to start setting up our default React app and get all the tools we need installed, our IDE installed, and all that good stuff. So let's get right into the video. So our first step in getting things up is we need to create a Git repository. So to do that, we're going to be using GitHub, and you're going to have to create an account at this link, github.com. This is my account, and also on my account, I'm going to link this in the description. It's going to have a repository for the finished example project app, so you could always reference this if you need help or you're stuck on something. And this is like the completed one, so it has literally all the code we're going to be coding in it. And there's still some things I need to code and like bug fixes I need to do here as of making this video, so it might not be the complete 100% done app. But yeah, just reference this repository whenever you need help. So anyways, you're going to have to create a GitHub account. So once you make your GitHub account, we're going to want to create a new repository to store your example project in. And this is really important for code collaboration because when you have a Git repository, multiple people could work on different things at once. And this is really important for hackathons because, again, you're on a team and you're under time pressure and you want to be able to like transfer code to other people and all that good stuff without having conflicts or merge conflicts or any of that. So let's start by creating a new repository. So you go up here and you click new repository. You could name this whatever you want, whatever your app is going to be themed after. So I'm just going to name it oSTEM Hackathon Training Example App. Or just Example App. You can add a description if you want. I won't be adding one right now. And then you could choose if you want it public or private. If it's public, anyone can see your code. If it's private, only you can. And you can only, I think you could only set it as private if you have like the GitHub subscription. But I'm not sure, that may have changed. But anyways, with Cal Poly, you could get free GitHub subscription. I highly suggest that. I will put in the description the GitHub Student Developer Pack, so you could get a bunch of cool free tools that you could use for software and creating software. So I'll link that below if you're interested. And we're going to create a README file, and we're also going to add a git ignore, or we'll just add that later. And then you could just create repository. And then once that's done, this is our repository here. You could go to your profile and look at your repositories and it will show up. So the next step is to install Git on your computer. So this is the page to install that. I'll also link this in the description, and there's a Mac way to install it and a Windows way. I personally use Windows, so I install Git Bash, and that helps me use Git. But for Mac, it's a little different, so just go to this site here, and it will give you all the instructions. So once you have it installed, you can go to your terminal if you're on Mac, but if you're on Windows, you want to go to Git Bash, and it will open up a little screen like this. So here I just kind of zoomed into my window a little bit more so you could actually see what commands I'm about to type in. So this little squiggly indicates that we are in our home directory for our user, and this is my user. And if you do ls, it will list all the files in that directory, and if you do cd, it will change directories. So what we're basically going to do here is we're basically going to clone that GitHub repository we just created onto our local machine, so we can start coding on our local machines and save changes to GitHub. And I'm just going to clone my repository in my desktop. You could clone it anywhere you want. So I'm just going to go to my OneDrive because that's where my desktop is, and then cd desktop. And I can list all my files on my desktop. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to clone the repository we just made. And to do that, you'll basically go to your repository page on GitHub, and you'll click this code button, take this link, copy it, and then you'll go back to your terminal and you'll do git clone and then paste that link in, and then it should clone your repository on your local machine. So we can just do ls to check if that occurred, and we can just cd into this new repository. And we could tell this is a Git repository by the fact that this is main. This means that we're on the main branch, and that's where we'll be working on. So this is in the folder of our repository on our local machine. So we're gonna have this .git hidden folder. This just contains all the important stuff for like making sure that this is a repository on our computer and like connecting it to Github Repository and important stuff. So don't touch this file, don't mess with it. And then we're gonna have a readme, and in this readme you can put a little description about what this project is and stuff. And then we're also gonna add a new file, and we're gonna call this .git ignore. So now in Git, all the stuff you put in here and all the folders you indicate here, files, will all be ignored. So when we push our changes to the remote repository on GitHub, the stuff in .git ignore won't be pushed. So this will be very important once we start coding our web app. So our next step is to start creating our actual app. So to do that, we're gonna have to install some nice tools. So we're gonna have to install Node.js and Npm. And this site, which I'm also gonna link in the description, is gonna explain how to install it based on your operating system. I'm not gonna go into details on how exactly to install it, but if you need help, please reach out to me on the Slack page in the Hackathon channel or DM me personally. So I'm just gonna copy this command. I already have everything installed on my computer, so this should just like update npm for me, because I haven't used npm on this machine in like quite a while. So this might take some time, so I'll be back. So once everything is installed and you're all good, you could check if your stuff is installed by doing node-v, and it should show a version, and then npm-v, and it should show a version. And now if this is saying command not found, it's possible that if you're using Windows, these symbols here are not in your environmental variables. So if that's happening, please reach out to me. I can try and help you to the best of my ability with that. So anyways, let's get started with actually creating the default React app. So our next step is actually to create the example React app. So also make sure your versions are this. In the last clip, I didn't have the most updated version of Node, and that was causing issues. So please make sure you have a close enough version to this that everything in this video is actually going to work properly. So anyways, we're going to create our React app. So you're going to do npx create -react -app, and then this is going to create a new folder, and then we're going to choose the name of that folder. I'm just going to name it Connecting Pride, and you press enter, and you can wait, and it's going to start creating your new app. So this might take some time, so I'll cut the video and be back. So once all that is done loading, you should see a new folder in your repository folder called whatever you named it, and it will have a node modules folder, a public folder, and a source folder. So this is where all of our React code is going to be. So React is a really helpful tool in the MERN stack. So it stands for the R in the MERN stack clearly, and what React does, it really helps our designs. We could put a bunch of HTML and CSS and encapsulate everything into different components, and from there these different components can work together and we can make a fully functioning web app. So before I kind of explain briefly which each of these files mean, let's just test if the default app is working. So to do that, we're going to open a new window here, a new terminal, and we're going to do npm start. And you should see this, and it's going to start running your web app at a specific port. So it's going to open up a browser, and this means it's running on our local machine called localhost on port 3000. So this is what your screen should look like. Let me minimize this a bit more. So your browser should open with this sort of thing. So eventually we're going to delete all this stuff and start creating our own web app because it's just the default. And if that works, then you're pretty much good to start coding. So as I said, we don't want all the default app stuff. So we're going to delete this folder, this folder, this. We're going to keep these two, and we're going to delete this test. And we're going to go into our public folder. We're going to delete these image files because we don't need those. Robots, we don't need that, and that. So your screen now in your browser should be showing up with a bunch of errors because we deleted a bunch of files that other files needed, but we're going to change these files so to make up a blank slate we could start working on. But before we do that, we need to install another tool to actually edit these files. What we're going to install is an IDE, and an IDE is an integrated development environment. Now there's tons of IDEs to choose from, but personally I use Visual Studio Code. So to install Visual Studio Code, you will go Google it or Bing it, because I'm using Edge here because I don't know why I'm using Edge. And then you'll click download, and basically it's showing Windows because I'm using Windows, but if you're using a Mac or OS X, it will show the installation for that operating systems. So once you install your integrated development environment, or Visual Studio Code is what I'm using, you could go to app.js, and we're going to start here. So you can click this and you could do open with Visual Studio Code, and it will open a new window where you can edit this file. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try to start from a blank slate. So in the next videos we could start actually coding our web app. So all this stuff, this we don't need. And then we don't need any of this. So you should have that in your app.js for the blank slate part. And then for app.css, sorry, wrong program. Let me open that in Visual Studio Code. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to delete all of this, but we're going to keep this part here. And remember to save your files. And then we're going to go to our index.js. We're going to open that in Visual Studio Code. We're going to see all this. We don't need this stuff down here. We don't need this. We need this. We need this. We need all this. Yeah, so we need all of this in our index.js. And now we're going to go in our index.css, and we're going to open that up again back in Visual Studio Code. So you're going to have this, and we're just going to delete, or we'll just keep, or yeah, let's just delete it all. Starting from a blank slate. So then you will go into your public folder, and then you're going to see index.html, and you're going to open this back up. Let's see if I could open this up in the actual thing, Visual Studio Code. There we go. So this is our HTML file. It has a bunch of stuff, default stuff we do not care about. So I'm just going to install or delete all of these comments here because I don't care about them too much. We don't need this, or we don't need this, we don't need this. We don't need this. We don't really need this. We don't need this. And the rest, or we also don't need this too. This title, you could change it to the site, your site name. So I'm just gonna name it Connecting Pride. That's gonna be the name that shows up in our browser tab. And I think we're good there. So let's go ahead and test our web app now. So let's go back and open a new window in Git or your terminal. And we're going to do npm start. And you have to do this from this folder, your root folder. Or something's already running on that because I have another window running it. So let me go pull up my browser again. So we want localhost 3000. And it should, if you did everything correctly and followed my instructions, you should see your title on the browser and you should just see a white screen. So we're starting from a blank slate. Now, to make extra sure that things are working, we can go to our HTML here and we can just add a p tag. This just means paragraph, and we're going to do just hello world and save. Now, if you go back to your browser, it should show your changes without you having to do npm start again. Okay, so now that we actually have some initial files in our local repository, we want to push all those changes to our remote repository, just in case something happened to our local repository and we needed to get the code back from the remote repository. We'll have a backup. So, first things first, we need to add some stuff to our .gitignore because we do not want to upload this very big node modules file. So we're going to go to our gitignore, and you're going to put, not this one, let me go back, sorry about that, desktop, and we want the example app, .gitignore, and you're going to put this in the .gitignore and save that. So next you're going to go to here and you're going to do git status. These are all the staged files for commit, and a commit is just like a little message for once you push something to the repository, you'll have a message for each time you push. So we're going to do git add so we could get all those files. And as you can kind of see here, it's ignoring node modules like what we want. And we'll name that something. We'll just call it initial commit. That's good. And then we're going to do Git Push Origin. And once we do that, if you go to your GitHub repository remotely, and I'm going over there quickly right now, so you can see all the files are now uploaded. So we can check in here, and the node modules files is ignored, which is good. So now that we did that, we're all ready to start actually making our own web app. So now that we set up our default React app, that concludes the end of this video. So all we have now is just a blank slate to start actually developing our app on. We didn't really code or anything or do anything fun yet. So in the next video, we'll be covering React components and a little bit on HTML and CSS, and we'll start creating our site. And we're going to start by creating a header for our site, a navigation bar, and yeah, and then after that we'll do some more design components, and I look forward to teaching you all.